The What's Neat This Week podcast is supported by enthusiastic model railroaders just like you. Additional support is provided by Oak Hill Model Railroad Track Supply. Check them out. Their website is ohrtracksupply.com. Thank you very much, Jeff Otto, for your support.
Downtown.
3, 2.
This is the What's Neat This Week podcast for... keep one more time.
Okay. Got it?
You don't want me to introduce it?
And 3, 2.
This is the What's Neat This Week podcast for October 28th, 2017. This is show number 15. And tonight I've got Daniel Coombs with me. I've got Michael Buddy. We've got Dirk running the cameras. Thank you, Dirk, for doing that for us. And we've got so much to talk about tonight that we can go on for an hour, but I really don't want to have to. First thing on my list here is the gentleman from Rail Pro has got quite an active group of folks on the internet, evidently support groups and informational groups on the internet. And they've encouraged him to come here, so I need to close that deal on the phone this week. But it sounds like we're going to get a very professional segment on how to use the system by the creator himself, which will be a lot easier than us trying to figure it out, right? The What's Neat show for November is out. And I got to tell you what, guys.
A lot of cringing going on.
She's alive and well, and there's a scheduled segment for this tank car to be used in the December show. We've got a project coming up for that. I know that was a little shocking, but that was the purpose of it. I guarantee we'll get more views out of that. This tank car will pay for itself in the long run. The locomotive cradle is also a segment in the video showing how to build one for the November video. We look at the Intermountain Tier 4 locomotives in the November What's Neat video at Model Railroad Hobbies magazine. We also have Ron Perry from Canada, from Justin Trudeau territory. He shows us how to build the ITLA scale models building this month. And we do the Athearn Moonshot. I don't know if I said that twice or not. Lots of CSX run-bys in the November video. It was kind of an accident that had happened, but there were so many CSX engines that we had here to work with that the Athearn units, the ScaleTrains.com units, the Intermountain units, they are all playing a role in doing run-bys. Joe Fugate has rebranded the show a little bit, or more or less, I want to say branded it, by trying to put the Model Railroad Hobbyist name on it a little bit more, with a shield in the opening. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, just like on professional cable TV, there's this little MRH logo that fades in the distance. So that's the rebranding of the show. I've actually asked for the shield, and we're going to do a different placement on the opening right between the caboose commercial and then the sunrise shot. We're working on the December What's Neat video right now. We've got 9 more days to get it done, but the very interesting thing that you will see in that video that you won't see anywhere else on the internet is you will be able to see the SoundTraxx Tsunami 2 turbine decoder in a 3-piece turbine in the Super Turbine. And it's number 26. In fact, it's right here on the table in front of me. This has got the SoundTraxx Tsunami 2 turbine decoder in it, full sound. This is the museum quality trains.com turbine with the LokSound decoder in it. Those are the only 2 in the country that I'm aware of at this point, and we demonstrate them in a 6-minute segment on the What's Neat show in December, where you can hear each one start up, roll a few inches forward, and then shut back down again. There's absolutely no commentary. There's no opinion whatsoever injected into it. It's just a simple demonstration. And then I just look at the camera and say, that's a segment of What's Neat. It's all up to everyone out there to decide what it is they like. And that was how I wanted to present it. I didn't want any bias, no opinion, just here it is, unedited. And they're both magnificent, I will tell you. I am going to hand it to Daniel. Daniel, what have you been working on?
Well, not a whole lot. You know, school and just a lot of other stuff going on. But I don't know where I left off last time, doing the scenery on my creek section. I still got to finish that up, and I might bring clips by when we do the podcast next. But like I said, I am going to start back on the scenery, so hopefully within the next month or 2, I'll get some greenery going. Wooden scenics, fine turf, foam turf, or just to kind of colorize my layout so I don't see any more of that pink, Yeah, just I got all pink foam with the 2-inch thick stuff, so I can start eliminating that, and just finishing up little cosmetics here and there, and hopefully get that done to where then I can have a layout to enjoy when I'm running around my trains.
Can we do a What's Neat segment for the main video on your layout? Actually come there and visit. You talk about what it is you did, how you built it, theory behind it.
I think we can arrange that.
I can tell you right now,
Talk to the management.
the way things are working out, I'm falling behind. I've got so many photographs that are due by November 1st. I think I've got a couple of SoundTraxx videos due November 1st. I got a Christmas card with Fugate due, and I've got an Athearn shot due, and I don't think the Athearn one's going to be done on time. But Joe Fugate asked for a beautiful steam locomotive running through snow with pine trees, and what Joe's going to get for the Christmas card is a California Zephyr running through Illinois with wire trees. It's just the way it's going to happen tomorrow, Joe. Dirk, you've got the readers' questions for us from last week's show and also from the main show at Model Railroad Hobbyist Magazine. We've combined all the questions tonight. Let's launch into that and see how far that'll take us.
All right, so the first one was from Little Piggy. He was talking about facility house, engine house with details. We talked earlier about that. It's just get the prototype picture and do it from
What
there.
kind of details to put around an engine house?
Yeah.
I really would suggest, on the internet or in books. And what year are you modeling? I mean, we know what castings are available and what details we can buy from the store, but really look at prototype photos. And if you can't buy it commercially, kind of sort of figure out how to scratch build it.
David Muse did thank us for answering his question for speed matching. So we thank him for giving that information to us. Now we have one here from Crazy Horse 782000. And Ken, thanks for the tip on setting down some track and running the engine back and forth to figure out how to continue with the layout. As a retiree with a fairly big unfinished basement, I've been reading a lot of magazines to try to find a plan that might work, but it almost becomes overwhelming to a person that's been away from the hobby for 40 years. So he's looking for help. What kind of suggestions could you give this guy? He's got an unfinished basement. He's starting from scratch.
You know, coming from an old guy like me probably sounds strange, but Facebook, I think, is an amazing resource for people to connect. And you throw questions out there on these different groups, and you get a whole lot of answers, a whole lot of support from people. And I don't know, I joined in 2014, and I really, really liked it a lot.
Was this the question that referred to running a train on a piece of track?
Yes, that was back.
That
and
was
forth,
from
just to
last
look
week
at it.
when we answered that question.
Yep, sure was.
Next week is a week that we get off. So for next week's show, I'm going to run a segment that explained about layout design. I spent about 10 minutes discussing the subject and going back through the history of the layouts that I've designed and other people that I know that have done that. And we talked about the 5 or 6 different ways to approach layout design. So next week's video, after we do an opening about that, we'll play that clip. What video was that in?
August 2016.
That's right, it was. But that is a very interesting segment to run with regards to how to design a layout, and I think it'll answer the questions from last week too. But I tell you what, putting a piece of train on a track and running it back and forth, or just taking a compass and drawing some circles on a piece of paper, because it's always your minimum radius that dictates the size of your layouts and your peninsulas. So once you start drawing circles on a compass in your room, you'll start seeing things, how they could be laid out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you're not on Facebook, I mean, the key is just get a lot of opinions, get a group of guys, somehow connect with people, and you'll get a lot of suggestions and a lot of help.
Yeah.
Amen.
This is from David Curtis. Ken, I have the needle that you had on this podcast, and it seems to clog up after a time. Now he's back to using MicroMark brushes. He's asking if there's a way to keep this from clogging.
Every time you use it, make sure that you blow the glue out of it, because it's the glue that remains in the needle that causes the gray epoxy tip to start to disintegrate, and it's that gray material that'll clog up your needle as it gets into there. So you want to blow it out every time you use it. With regards to using brushes, it's a fantastic idea. Brushes are the most wonderful thing for applicating Elmer's white glue or putting acid resin on something right before you're about to solder track. Paintbrushes are expendable and a great way to deposit material. Unorthodox in a lot of ways because you're going to throw away the brush, but it's worth it. Paintbrushes are not to be overlooked as an applicating tool for various chemicals.
We just had a quick one asking if we're going to be traveling, and I'm sure that's way in the future. But this one says, I have a question about painting brass. Does it hurt the value? And what's your opinion, Ken?
What do you think, Daniel? Painting brass, would that hurt the value of a locomotive?
I would say yes, because
Mike?
Well, I don't know. I thought they were worth more if they were finished realistically.
That's the key right there. It depends on the quality of the paint. If you've disassembled the entire model, for example, a steam locomotive, and you've painted all the parts and you put it back together and you've got the shiny screws and the wheels that aren't, it's one thing to hold a locomotive up by its tail end with the electric alligator clip to it and start airbrushing it with the drivers running. That type of a paint job is probably going to depreciate the value of the piece of brass. Again, if it's sandblasted and completely taken apart piece by piece, painted, reassembled, that way there's no shorts in it, you will increase the value of a piece of brass. You could paint a $150 United engine with a gorgeous paint job, and it's probably going to be worth $450. So if you do a quality job with glass, lights, decals, no mistakes, of course it's going to increase the value. So hands down, easy.
I guess the quality of the job is what counts.
Well, the quality, Ken and I repainted one of my engines that I had bought. It was 3755, and we spent, I counted 18 hours over here.
It takes 16 to do a steam engine. I remember that.
Yeah, and it was
And you're not going to do it for a
worth
living. You're not going to get your money out of it like you're making a living.
No, you're not. Here's our next one from Jacob Oliver. Hey, Ken, fantastic show as usual. What are you guys' thoughts on using blue box engines as the base for a locomotive fleet and learning how to repaint, detail, etc.? He's got a prototype that he's dealing. He's just looking, what can I do for repainting and detailing? Is a blue box okay to use?
Is it worth it, you mean? Worth your time? I don't know if that's the question, because that almost sounds kind of crass right there, worth your time. When you've got, the whole point of the hobby is enjoyment. You can buy it right off the shelf with all the details already applied for a price, take it home and focus on your scenery and everything, all the other peripherals that you've got to do. As opposed to buy a blue box and drill the holes and put in the handrails and decal it and narrow the hood, correct horns, everything, go through all the details. That's part of the enjoyment of the hobby. It's not wrong to say, oh, well, that's wrong, you shouldn't do that, it ain't worth your time. Well, wait a minute. That's how I love spending my time. So there's no such thing as wrong. That's the beauty of this hobby. There's no
some
such thing as
people
wrong.
enjoy that. Some people don't like to do all that detailing work either. So.
Oh, I hated it. I didn't like it.
Right.
My first engine, God save me, because I'm going to look for the slide of it, was the GP9 over in Dupo. And I first got my car and I drove to the hobby shop and I got my decals. I remember looking at the engine on my seat. I got my license. I got my engine. Now I can get out and get what I need. And 30 years later, I looked at it and I found the original slide that I painted it on. And wouldn't you know, I looked at the slide backwards when I numbered it. So much for my following prototype.
I hope you didn't put the numbers on
it. It was
backwards.
1811 instead of 1181. I did it, and I didn't realize I did it wrong for 30 years. That's embarrassing. I'm going to edit that right out.
Well, over the years that I've come over here, this layout has changed just all the time.
Right.
But some of the places have stayed the same, and that goes in our next question from Keith Carroll. He says, Ken, was wondering if your modules are based off of places from your childhood or places you have seen, or are they strictly just imagination?
I want to say they're a mixture of both. The big river with the BLMA bridge on it, that scene is completely freelanced based on prototype standards. If I do freelance, I always base it on prototype in one way or fashion or form or another. Kimswick is an absolute prototype. That bridge that we ran your auto racks on, that bridge is a bridge that's behind my old high school, Oakville High School, which my son goes to now. After we got off of school, we'd go down to the bridge, me and a few friends, and a lot of people congregated down there, and who knows what they were doing down there, but I was watching the trains. And so I modeled that bridge on my layout because it was my childhood memories. So that's a short answer to the question, but yes, both.
And our next one is from, I hope this is right, Merlin Charmian. Ken, would you show us on a future West Neat segment how you built your marine models, specifically your towboat and barge models that are in the river section on your layout? Love the podcast.
I'll save you the time. I'll tell you right now how I did it. This is an article that I had finished for Mainline Modeler and then they went out of business, and the article never got published. But I still have the original transparencies from this. What I did was I found a prototype tugboat, and I took a slide of it, a photograph of it, and I projected the slide on the wall onto a piece of styrene. And what I did was I moved the slide projector in and out, further and further in and out from the wall. And I had an HO scale tape measure in my hand at the same time. And the one thing on the tugboat that I knew the dimension of was a ladder and how much spacing was between the rungs of a ladder. Once I quantified that number and I matched the scale, HO scale ruler onto the wall, projecting the slide onto the wall, I then was able to trace it onto a piece of styrene, simply cut out the styrene, build the cab, build all the brass work around the cab, and before you knew it, I had a barge and a tugboat in HO scale simply by projecting it onto styrene on a wall. I don't know if that's the wrong way to do it, but it worked. And that's something I'd love to say to a company like Wathers, who is always looking for new products in their series when they come out with multiple buildings every few years as a series. Why not do the river? Create a barge, create a rake, a box, and a pusher boat, a tugboat of some type for the Mississippi, Midwest, Illinois, the whole middle of the country. There's rivers. And think about the buildings that you've already got in production. The grain elevators, the cement facilities, all of those buildings could be a little changes, and now they're riverside buildings to be offloaded from train to barge. And there's a whole 4-foot by 6-foot section on a layout where you'd have 7 new products and a boat, tie it in with a car float. But there's a product idea, guys.
Our last one, we picked this up off the internet. It was talking about when we're building those, as you see the auto rack sitting there and what it's sitting in.
The auto rack. Oh,
Those car holders. I'm not sure that the rubber drawer liners as a good choice for padding. One of the guys at an N-scale club I belonged to used to line his plane boxes that he stored his rolling stock in. Over the time, the rubber attacked the paint on the cars, leaving little dimples wherever one of the bumps had been.
Okay, what you're referring to is the locomotive cradle segment that I built in this month's What's Neat that's running currently in the magazine. And in that video, we build this cradle. And I use this drawer liner material for the inside of the cradle. And the fact is, people say that this is impregnated with, petroleum. And over time, it will attack your model. And I agree with that. That is an absolute possibility. Now, when I'm working on a model, like the tank car I broke up inside of one of these, they're not in there very long. So it's not going to really affect them. If you store your models in this, I can tell you I've seen where it will eat away. Look at this auto rack here. These are those Walmart vehicles that we were getting from Walmart before they became a choking hazard. And these are beautiful models. And this is in an is this AccuRail?
Yes.
AccuRail auto rack. Now, these cars have been in this auto rack for 10 years, maybe 7. But the tires have eaten their way into the plastic. These cars are glued to the plastic permanently because something between the tires and the plastic reaction, whatever it is, these cars have eaten their way into it. I mean, this one's loose, but the rest of these...
And you sure you haven't really glued that down?
No, these are not glued down. These cars are stuck to the plastic just from the tires. Whatever, they're eating into each other.
That is amazing.
Yeah. Those of us that build 1/25th scale models have known about that too, because the tires in the kits will eat into the plastic and leave melted in tire treads on the bodies and windshields and stuff.
You got more questions, Dirk?
That'll do it for this time.
Boy, I tell you what, we're starting to make good time on this show. What else you want to talk about here? We've got some turnouts from Microengineering. I went down there this week to pick up some straight track for some scenes we're building for the What's Neat December show. And what we've got here is something this is best kept secret down in Microengineering's valley down there where the creek is in Fenton. And what this is a ladder system made of number 5 turnouts. And each one of these, I'm going to start handing them off to you. Each one of these turnouts are different. And I while they explained it to me in the factory, it was an A, B, C, D, E configuration of turnouts. But what this combination of turnouts allows you to do is to build a ladder in half the space that it would take to build a ladder using straight number 6 turnouts. Now, how do I know that? Because I took all of Microengineering's number 6 and lined them up, and then I assembled this trackage next to that. And not only did it spread wider quicker with the NMRA gap of 2 1/8 inch that's required that they've got in the literature, but it also did it in a shorter span. So for every 3 number 6 turnouts, we were almost able to get 5 ladder tracks. It's that much of a space savings. So check this out. If you look at this, and I know this is crazy, I'm going to try to hold this up a little closer to the camera here, but Dirk, check this out. There's a piece of turnout here, and then there's track work here. It's designed that way. This little section of track gets hooked in. And what we'll do for next week's podcast, and we're going to feature on the What's Neat show this track, this really cool product. We'll put it all on a piece of foam and line it up correctly, and then we'll take some number 6s and number 8s and line it up next to it to illustrate visually, so I don't have to talk 25 words, and just show you, hey, look, this is what it does. So check it out. It's something very interesting, and we're going to do some more work on that. So neat stuff.
It's going to be a neat segment.
Oh, Lord. Yes, that's going to be good. Jeff Otto from Oak Hill Model Railroad Track Supply gave us an N-scale template this week to show off on the show. Is this Z-scale? No, this is N-scale code 55 and number 10 turnout.
Code 55.
Yeah,
Wow.
code 55 rail. So you put your ties in there, you put your circuit board in there in various spots, lay your rail on top, and solder it, pull it out, and you've got a turnout. And then you can slide that turnaround anywhere on the layout you want to hand lay it, put it down.
Right.
Instead of hand laying your track, gluing it to the homosote, and then being stuck with that because it's there.
Right.
So it's a cool concept. Check it out. OHR Track Supply is his website. He's got a really nice website. And we thank Jeff Otto for sponsoring the What's Neat This Week podcast. Mike, tell me about those trucks.
Well, I got one of these new River Point Station bucket trucks from Dirk, and my plan is to remove the cab and backdate it because I model in the 70s, but I'm making a lot of telephone vehicles. I retired from the phone company, so I'm reproducing a lot of the vehicles that I worked with on different scenes. I've got some auto racks with telephone vehicles in them, and a scene with a guy on a pole, and so anyway, that's what I'll be doing with this River Point Station truck, and
That's cool.
Maybe put one of the Atlas 73 Ford cabs on it, or
I hope you get more of those, Dirk.
yeah.
We're trying.
Anyway,
Well, we're at our time limit. I had a whole bunch more segments to do here tonight, but we don't need to do it. We can save it until 2 weeks from now. Next week is going to be our week off. This is podcast number 15, and Daniel, I'll let you close it out.
Alrighty, guys. Like I would say as any other podcast, like, dislike, comments, questions are all appreciated. And like we did say, next week we're all taking a week off, but the following Saturday we'll be back with some more topics on the podcast. And I don't know, do you have any ideas for what we may do next time, or just want to play it by ear?
Yeah, I'm going to start launching into all the Broadway Limited photographs, and I want to talk about, somebody asked a question about this building and how we built it. I was going to start out with a series of slides and actually walk our way through the entire thing, which would be a really cool story. Probably end up scanning 45 slides for it, but it'd be a really cool piece. It would last probably about 7.5 minutes long, and we'll save it for next time around because we're past our time. We're already at 25 minutes.
All right, well, I'll finish it off, and I'm Daniel Coombs with Ken Patterson, Mike Buddy, and Dirk running for cameras to us tonight.
Thanks,
Thank
Dirk.
you very much. This is podcast number 15 for October 28th, 2017.
Thank you.